LSU Odyssey live. How's everybody doing? Crazy Saturday championship Saturday weekend. We forgot to post the show out. My God. Sorry about that. We actually forgot to even post the link. There we go. As you can see, we're rocking the iconic brand hat. Definitely take a look at iconicbrand.com for all of your championship swagger, championship clothing needs. One of the best brands I've ever worked with. Langston is my man. And if you didn't know, the iconic brand is something you always see Kevin Falk rocking as well, because he's family with Langston and loves the iconic brand as well. So definitely check out Iconic because they're fantastic. As you can see, this hat is awesome. This hat is just one of my favorites. Get a good look at that. Sorry, we're working with the iPad. My apologies for the last little bit. If you haven't noticed, we put out a really thorough, really hard-hitting article about Lane Kiffin and kind of like what LSU are getting in Lane. And we put that out a couple days ago, I think 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. But right as this whirlwind of news happened, some circumstances have occurred that have required our attention away from the game. And so I apologize for that. That's, of course, very rare. Something like that happens here at LSU Odyssey. But that is the thing that you see with a solo venture like we are. When things like this happen, there's no like staff or anything like there to pick up the slack or anything, So I apologize for that. But we have tried the best we can to kind of stay on top of this. It's just we have a baby coming and a toddler son, and I'm not a deadbeat dad. I'm going to fulfill my fatherly duties and all of that. So that explains some of the absence of all of that. I woke up to some crazy messages of, man, we needed you for this. So, man, I was going to send you this. So, man, I tried to get you to post this. I was going to help you break this. And some missed opportunities is all I'll say. But that's what happens when sometimes you can't just be plugged in all the time. And it's all good. I just wanted to explain that to you guys, as not only, friends, viewers, subscribers, all that stuff, but, there's people who are customers in a way, because you guys some people have been, paying LSU Odyssey to help us support what our mission, to provide the best LSU coverage to the #1 fan base in the country. And I want to make sure that you guys feel like, as much as one man can control and one man can make happen, we're trying to do that with all the circumstances that are involved with that. But for all the parents out there, you already know what having a baby is all about. So without that, going into any more of that type of detail, we'll just continue because we have a big show here. When I wrote this article about Lane Kiffin's arrival, I spent a few long nights where I was up all night writing about Kiffin and kind of looking, researching and I thought I knew everything about Lane Kiffin. I thought I knew like every single detail about his career, and I started just going and writing. But then when I looked back and kind of was like double checking a few details, I realized, oh my God, like there's a few things that you did not know. And so I kind of got really deep into figuring out who Kiffin is at the soul of the man, and that's hard for LSU fans to be able to see 100%, especially in this phase he's in where he has rebranded himself in a way, from ESPN documentaries to just continuously doing it, being a family man from Joey Freshwater, um, having all these burned bridges, sometimes in Tennessee, burned mattresses and all this stuff. Kiffin had settled down. His life in the fast lane had kind of slowed, but at the same time, his coaching had never been hotter than ever before because he had been able to kind of control and streamline and kind of drive that energy, kind of that untamed energy that would cause some of the mistakes of his early career. And he said something at his press conference that I found something I sympathize with big time, because he said, like, in my profession, I've made a lot of public mistakes. I've made like every public mistake you can make or something like that. And I did it publicly on the world stage at a young age. And like, there's times doing this job covering LSU where that is very much the case with some of the situations we've been in. There's times that we've been accused of getting something wrong when actually weeks later people find out that we actually were right about that and no one else was, like Caleb Jackson redshirting, or Garrett Nussmeier, your starting quarterback, having multiple injuries. It's kind of funny when that happens, but no one's ever in this day and age going to line up and say that's the truth. They're just going to keep trying to spin things. And it's just this whole thing with Kiffin. I'm wanting to be as fair as possible. Like, just because he's the new coach doesn't mean we're going to kiss absolute ass and completely bend over, like we saw happen a lot when Kelly first arrived. Kind of this weird thing with the media, but we're also going to call this as fairly as possible, and of course we want him to be successful. And so with that article, I want everyone to know, going into reading that, just know that we're coming from as much of a balanced kind of perspective as we possibly can. Someone who's not too caught up in some of the drama of his past, just kind of like, oh, interesting, that happened. Oh my gosh, left to the tarmac, or oh, this, I don't think that those certain incidents, even if you're recalling them, writing about them, retelling them, that type of stuff, I don't think that's really, celebrating or saying that defines the man, Lane Kiffin, because I don't think it does. I think he's ever evolving, and you've seen that with Ole Miss. He's proven that with Florida Atlantic. He's proven that with a few different jobs where it was like, ooh. I remember them saying that at Florida Atlantic, kind of like, Kiffin's out in the wilderness, but man, is he succeeding. Man, is he really, delivering something here at Florida Atlantic that is probably going to get him a job back in the big time. People were really kind of saying that type of stuff. And sure enough, I kind of felt like it's only a matter of time before he gets a shot at the big time. Ole Miss came calling, and bam, he's taken them to a Sugar Bowl within the first season. And now, after this year, 6 years at Ole Miss, 2 New Year's Six Bowls, which is way more than LSU did in that time. This is, of course, from 2020 to 2025, and then the college football playoff appearance, of course, that he will not be able to coach in, and an 11-1 season, which no coach has done at LSU, obviously, since 2019. 11 wins in a season, and Kiffin is very successful, but at the same time, very driven, very determined. And yes, there were still these things that happen off the field, some kind of shenanigans, some kind of hijinks. There was always some trolling online. There was always some interesting Lane Kiffin hijinks that always made him a big talking point. Somebody that on every show they wanted to bring up Kiffin kind of as like a, we know he'll get numbers, Kiffin, and like I wanted to kind of get deeper, and it was very hard to, without really listening to him over and over and over, like the Theo Vaughn interview, which I'd already watched from like a year and a half before, whenever he did it. I think he only did it like 9 months ago. Yeah. But I watched that thing again. I watched a few things like that. And I think that gets more closer to who he is. But this is such a different version of Lane Kiffin, because what we are seeing now at LSU is Lane Kiffin on steroids. Lane Kiffin finally given the platform, the launching pad to just fly high, because what you've seen inside Lane Kiffin's first week at LSU has been incredible. There's been a lot of positives. There's been a few things that were like, I'm gonna detail a few things that really, a few things that suck, but not really too much blaming this on Lane Kiffin at all for one of these decisions. Kind of an understandable decision from his perspective. Oh my God, we got Harold. What's up? Hey Harold, how you doing, my man? Harold's in the house. But outside of that, Lane Kiffin's first week at LSU has been, I think this isn't just, there was a lot of wins by Kelly that were kind of pumped up to be more than what they were. There was a lot of like, that week where he hired like, 3 or 4 awesome coaches, retained all these great, 5-star guys, got all these commitments. It was like, this is Kelly's greatest week ever. And it was like, oh yeah, that was great. But he never maximized or like capitalized on all of that, the winning that he was having, Kelly, like off the field, the hires that he was making, putting a really good staff together, all this stuff, all these strong commitments. You've got all these hardcore top of the line transfers coming aboard your team, and Kelly could not hit. And you see that with Kiffin, even though he hasn't called a snap at LSU yet, and maybe we could all be wrong saying this, maybe we could all be wrong, maybe we'll all watch this back and kind of laugh at ourselves, but I feel like there's a different energy. Do you guys? I don't feel like this is some outsider kind of like bastardizing LSU's program to kind of get what they want and kind of make it in their own image. I feel like this is Kiffin coming here and like, let's do this, baby. Like, let's ignite this, because what we've seen in Kiffin's first week has been incredible. I think he pulled off a few mission impossibles here. I think retaining Blake Baker, news that broke last night around like 10 something. I remember looking at my phone and I was in a moment of like, for once, being able to relax. We're relaxing, Chelsea and I, and I look at the phone and I'm like, oh my God, it broke like 2 minutes before. Matt Zenitz is the person we first saw the news from. I'm not sure if I'm correctly crediting that news, but if I'm not correctly crediting that news, definitely call us out on that in the comments. But we've saw this first from Matt Zenitz of CBS 247. Matt Zenitz saying that Blake Baker would be retained by LSU. Lane Kiffin pulling off a huge mission impossible here, because for me, Blake Baker, you felt like, damn, he's interviewing for the Tulane job. He's interviewing for the Tulane job. And you knew that Memphis were basically on their knees, like, we're going to offer you the head coaching job. And when I heard that Memphis was offering him the head coaching job, my first question was, okay, because I was talking to the father of a player at LSU, and I was saying, do you think Blake Baker is going to stay on? I just called him Blaker on accident there again. This is about 3 days ago, and he's like, yes, Baker's totally going to stay on, but this is the type of money he's being offered. This is the type of stuff that's happening. Because that was the first question I said is, he was, they said he's been offered head coaching jobs though. I was like, Tulane, and they said no, Memphis, and I was like, he's been offered by Memphis. Oh shit, I was kind of worried, thinking there was some questions about the Tulane athletic director, and they were wondering if they wanted to hire a first time head coach. They wanted someone with head coaching experience, and they weren't really on their knees to Blake Baker at that point, but they were still going to interview him and look into him. They did not offer him a job though. Memphis definitely did. But the salary Memphis offered, because that was my first question, how much money they offer him. And if it had been something over $3 million, I would have been worried. Like if it was 3.5, around $4 million per year to be Memphis's head coach, I think he would have taken that job, possibly. But there were family concerns where Baker did not want to move his family. There's also this urge to coach some of the players that are going to return on that defense, is why Baker is returning. And another reason why he's staying at LSU. He wants to finish the job that he feels could have been completed this season, but wasn't because he didn't have an offense. And I think that's what was made the season so frustrating for Blake Baker, was getting the blame for allowing, 24, 25 points to Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, who literally did everything, ran a train through our ass, but could not put it in the end zone because of that defense holding strong so many times. Their backs against that wall in that game against Ole Miss. Only allowing 25, 24 points in that game, I can't remember which, that was incredible. We only lost by 6 points. As bad as we had played, our defense was so good this season. They gave us chance after chance after chance to win games this season in incredible fashion too. Complete back against the wall fashion. And Blake Baker, my God, he was frustrated because he heard the chatter that was out there from the fans. I saw it too. There was many fans who said, I hope, send Baker packing too. When are they going to fire Baker? I remember a few direct messages of people saying, after I reported that Brian Kelly was going to be fired by LSU, a bunch of people hit me up saying, is Baker going to follow him? And I actually actively said, oh, fuck you. This defense is allowing 11.8 points per game. This defense is allowing three out of 14 on third downs. This defense is absolutely mauled every top rated quarterback. There's only been a few guys who really gave LSU and this defense the business. And it was quarterbacks that would give every defense the business. And especially when you're missing some of your best players in the lead up to that game, especially when you don't have Whit Weeks, and especially when you don't have Bernard Gooden. Those two huge, impactful players, especially when you had a Pat Payton that was hurt in that game as well, playing hurt. You had a dip in form from Tamarcus Cooley as the season went on as well. He started the season so strong, looked incredible, and he still was. Tamarcus Cooley still held it down and was still really good. But I would have actually tried Deshaun Spears and AJ Halsey at the back at one point, I think, in one of those games against those dual threat quarterbacks, because you really needed someone who could really do the job. And Tamarcus Cooley was starting to get beat over the top, beat over the middle, and was beaten for the most touchdowns this season. But Blake Baker's defense, man, they were unbelievable this season. They finished the season strong as well. This defense, man, what they did without some of the, cornerstones of this team, without Whit Weeks. And then you had a very, very good edge guy in Gabe Relaford, who was starting for you when he went down. Let's not forget that. And Gabe Relaford, could he have been a superstar for LSU's pass rush this season. I don't know. The problem that we saw with LSU's defense this last season, the only problem, they actually had less sacks than we had in the last 2 seasons, which was like two of the worst seasons for LSU's pass rush, like 33 sacks and like 30 sacks. This season, LSU only have 27 sacks this season, just 27 sacks this season. And they have created a hell of a lot of pressure, but just 27 sacks. And so what did Blake Baker do by staying? What does this do for LSU? Obviously, this is going to like really elevate your team because Kiffin is going to know that guy over there is going to hold it down. He's not going to let them just have an automatic touchdown if they get down in that red zone. He's going to hold some teams to a bunch of field goals. They're going to create turnovers. They're going to create a shit ton of pressures with Kevin Peoples. And now we're going to be talking about LSU's new defensive line coach. Because 27 sacks, some of the way that this defensive line, how much better they could have been this season. You know, their leading sacker had just 2 sacks this season. That was Jack Pyburn. That's just not good enough. 27 sacks, 62 tackles for loss. And it felt like there was more plays than that they made, you know, but this defense really should have had a lot to show more for it, for how good they were. You know, you had so many guys getting picks, so many interceptions. It was like Christmas as far as interceptions. It was interception Christmas for LSU fans that saw a defense, LSU's defense last year. And yes, it was Baker's first season as defensive coordinator at LSU. But they only had 6 interceptions. Okay. Just 6 interceptions this last year. 17 interceptions so far. So, and there's still time to go. 17 picks is wow. You know, Perkins and Pickett have 6 interceptions between the two of them. To put it in context, Lane Kiffin keeping Blake Baker is so huge, guys. I can't even it's going to be so big for this team, especially because it's hard for me to picture an LSU offense run by Lane Kiffin with Harlem Berry, Caden Durham, potentially Kawan Lacey at the back, and you wouldn't be able to run the football. That would be shocking to me. That would be stunning to me. That would blow my mind. There's talk that perhaps Trey Holly, I'm not sure if he's made his decision or what yet, but there's talk Trey Holly could actually come back to LSU, and that's something that Lane Kiffin would try and push for. So another win there if Kiffin's able to get that done. But Blake Baker will stay on as LSU's defensive coordinator. And this is despite interviewing for the Tulane job and then being offered the Memphis job. But here's the thing, the Memphis job wasn't more of a salary than he was making at LSU. And maybe the reason he could have and would have taken the Tulane job is, hey, I'm not going to really have to move my family. You know, like we can just get a house in like New Orleans as well. Like didn't have to really move the family with that one. And that worried me a bit. Like, shit, we might lose Baker. I really was like, we might lose Blake Baker here. You know, like it sucks, but we might lose him. It turns out his desire to coach these guys, hopefully you get Perkins back another year, man, because this Perkins project still it just feels incomplete, even though he's put up some really crazy good numbers. It's still incomplete. Led the team in sacks, led the team with 3 interceptions this year as well, but still another incomplete season where you just feel like you could have got a lot more out of him. And Blake Baker feels like he is the guy that can make that happen. Whit Weeks, totally an incomplete loss season for Whit. just injuries, and then the week 3 ejection after 3 plays. Complete bullshit. Absolute bullshit ejection. Whit Weeks ejected from that game after 3 plays, but he's coming back. Hopefully his brother Zach as well. I mean, that's not confirmed, but I don't see why Zach would go anywhere else. He played this season in that fourth quarter against Florida when West, the brother on the far left, and Whit were both out. Whit, of course, ejected after 3 plays. West goes down with a hurt ankle only a couple plays. I think the last play of the third quarter. And so Zach, that younger brother in the middle, has to go in there, number 35. He holds it down, gets a few quarterback hits, looks great. Looks great. And in fact, I've actually said this to Zach in one of our interviews. We did a podcast interview a while back, I think probably like a year ago or something, where I said, hey, man, I think you might be actually like the combination of your brothers combined. You might be the best Weeks brother out there of all 3. We kind of laughed about that. But, maybe that's another thing is Whit Weeks being a core part of this defense. He's coming back. Maybe Harold Perkins, even though Harold Perkins did the senior night thing, I think if there is anyone who could perhaps convince Perkins to return, it would be Blake Baker, but we'll have to see about that. But you really have mission impossible here from Lane Kiffin to convince Blake Baker this is the place to be. And thank God Kiffin didn't get on an airplane and go to, this ESPN game day or whatever the hell it was, college game day that he was going to do with Pat McAfee, asking him some hard-hitting questions and stuff like that. Thank God he's like, no, I got work to do. And he stays and makes it happen. He keeps Blake Baker at LSU, guys. I mean, I continue to say it, that it was probably a pipe dream. I said it was probably a pipe dream that you get this guy who's going to be new. He's going to want to change things. He's going to want his guys. You rarely see even these great coaches, these great guys stay when that dude comes in, because he's just going to want his own guys to kind of be able to control things. And I think this is so brilliant from Lane Kiffin to not go that stupid route. Lane Kiffin has gone the smart route and said, I want the best coaches, not just guys I can control, on this staff. That includes Blake Baker as my defensive coordinator. I got to have you. You've got to stay. You got to be my guy. He made damn sure that he was going to stay. But then you know what? He made sure that Corey Raymond, the DBU godfather, was going to stay. That was a huge move to me, because he was another guy. We continued to say it. You got to keep Baker. You got to keep Baker. You got to keep Corey Raymond. You got to keep Baker. You got to keep Raymond. You got to keep Baker. We said it back and forth, on and off, over and over and over and over and over. And we thought it was a pipe dream if he would, there's no way that we'll get both of these guys to stay. Because even though it's the right thing to do, the smart thing for Kiffin to do, usually this is where coaches get kind of prideful and say, no, my way or the highway. Baker is he's getting head coaching offers. He thinks he's going to be a head coach. My authority is already under fire. Off with his head. Walk the plank. Instead of that being the reality with Lane Kiffin, instead, what we've seen with Kiffin is very, very surprising in this day and age of coaching. Lane Kiffin has said, you know what? I'm going to swallow my pride here and make sure I have every great coach on this staff, because he understands the pressure that he's under immediately. Lane Kiffin's under pressure, y'all. It's not just Lane Kiffin coming in here on a holiday. Lane Kiffin needs to win, and he needs to win now, or this LSU job will expose him as, how it exposed Brian Kelly. It exposed that Brian Kelly doesn't have any work ethic. It exposed that Brian Kelly's more of a politician. Well, the LSU job will bring to light exactly the type of coach that Lane Kiffin is. And I think what you're seeing so far is absolute mastery in ways of managing this situation. Lane Kiffin has desperately made sure to hold on to Blake Baker. And he did just that. That was a huge, huge win. Just that alone. You keeping Blake Baker for next season, knowing how our offense is going to improve just by osmosis, just by Kiffin'S, it's going to improve. But now you retain Blake Baker, though. You say, Corey Raymond, you're my guy. But now you also go out and you hire Elijah Robinson as your defensive line coach. Now, guys, I mean, Elijah Robinson had been talked about as a potential candidate for LSU for a while. And, you know, he's been at Syracuse as their co-defensive coordinator. And assistant head coach, defensive coordinator. He's been there since 2004. He's been at A&M in 2003, 2002. Actually, take that back. He was at A&M for 5 years. 6 official seasons from 2018 to 2023. D-line coach at Baylor. D-line coach and at Temple for 3 years. Penn State. Defensive quality control, something like the NFL liaison, Penn State, GA. You know, that's where he's from. Penn State, that's where he played. He's from Camden, New Jersey. This is a hard-hitting, badass dude. And he's been through a lot of the recruiting wars for some of the top D-line talent for some time now. I mean, you're looking at someone who is recruiting at Baylor, at Texas A&M, head-to-head with LSU for some of the top talent in the country. And, you know, he started winning a lot of those wars at the very end of his time at Texas A&M. And, yeah, LSU were actually able to get some flips and stuff like that, keep guys home and stuff. But a lot of the times we're losing some guys to him, too. Elijah Robinson did some damage to us and caused some dents to us on the defensive line. He was interim head coach for A&M in 2023 as well. But, man, you're bringing him in as LSU's defensive line coach. I'm just blown away because here's the thing. The guy, I've only heard great things about him as a recruiter. And that was kind of how I knew about him, was from a recruiting platform for years. I was, Elijah Robinson recruiting ace for Texas A&M, because that was, you know, when I was first starting to write LSU Odyssey and starting to cover was during that 2018, 2019, 2020. That was when we started. That was when Elijah Robinson was at A&M, and there was a lot of these recruiting battles between LSU and Elijah Robinson. And a lot of it for guys from inside the state of Louisiana, and him trying to desperately try and poach those guys and coming close and sometimes pulling it off. And him pulling it off with a lot of national guys too. Really loaded up a stockade of really nice talent there at A&M along the defensive line. And you saw that during those seasons, LSU would have some good defensive linemen and even some elite defensive linemen on their roster, but would never have an elite defensive line for any of those seasons. It feels. Um, it was kind of stunning. I'm trying to think back when we had like an elite, complete defensive line, and even 2019, that was a defensive line that was effective here and there and made some plays, caused some havoc, but they were more of a read and react defensive line than an attacking, penetrating, pass rushing type of defensive line. Very strange with those Dave Aranda defenses. But Elijah Robinson, man, he's going to really hype up these young guys that LSU have got on their defensive line right now. Because that's another thing that was just a huge first week for Kiffin. And I'm sure these young guys knew about the plan that was coming in. You know, that, hey, we are bringing in Elijah Robinson. Are you excited by that, Lamar? Do you dig that, Lamar? Do you dig that, Trenton Henderson? Do you dig that, big Richie Anderson? And all three said, let's go. Let's roll. Let's do this. Lamar Brown, the number one player in the country on early signing days, you know, there was a lot of worries. Is he gonna go back on it? Is he gonna go to Texas? There's all these kind of whispers. I never lost faith with it. I didn't follow the Lamar Brown recruiting saga as much as I could have, or reported on it as much as I could have. I kind of leave that to the GOAT in recruiting coverage. I mean, really, like it. I feel like it is redundant for me to cover recruiting unless I have an exclusive, unless I have something that's like my own, you know, some type of like, this is my own story here, because a lot of the times recruiting, you're just kind of regurgitating the same story unless you can go out and create some relationships with the recruits and do the type of stuff we've done before in the past, where you get close to some of these recruits and you do multiple interviews and you really get them to become closer to the fans. The fans kind of get to know these guys on a closer personal level and start to really root for them and believe in them even more. And kind of like, you know, when you have fan love like that, they will fight for you and root for you even during the tough times. And I think you see that with Lamar Brown. He's already been with Kiffin, walking out of the LSU football ops with a bunch of screaming fans cheering for him. He's already felt that. He already felt that night when LSU ops, it was wild outside. It was like a party, and they're celebrating Kiffin being hired. Ding dong, the witch is dead. No more Brian Kelly, but also, you know, Lamar Brown, their 5-star number one player in the country, at a position that LSU just really needs to solidify for the future. You know, you've got some strong defensive line nucleus pieces there. If you can continue to build and build and build and retain, this LSU defensive line could be fantastic for years to come. You just got to hold on to the pieces there. And Lamar Brown, you get his signature. Trenton Henderson, you make sure to get his signature. And then my favorite of the three, I think this guy is the best of the three, and most important of the three, Big Rich Anderson. You really make sure you hold on to all three of those guys, and you got their signings. It was monumental for Kiffin. You know, you expected him to lose a few more recruits than he did, and I think there was like one or two or something like that. All in all, I mean, from Des Ellis to you know, Big Rich Anderson, it seemed like they kept everybody, and then they added some that no one was really expecting. It was an unbelievably slam dunk recruiting class for Lane Kiffin. Just fresh days in on the job, um, pretty crazy, especially when you're having a few scares with some of these defensive line guys, and you tell them that you're going to hire defensive line coach Elijah Robinson. You're going to bring him in. And after a season where LSU only had 27 sacks, created a lot of pressure, created a lot of backfield chaos, but could not capitalize. They need guys who can finish in the backfield, guys who can finish off plays. You've got the right guy coaching the defense in Blake Baker. You've got the right architect there. You got Kevin Peoples. He's coaching the edge. He's the right guy coaching the edge. You needed someone who could come in and coach the defensive line and raise the bar a bit. It is weird and sad that Kyle Williams, LSU legend, 2003 national champion, he's going to be gone from LSU after just coaching one season as a defensive line coach at LSU. Probably like a dream job for him. Same thing with a guy like Kevin Falk in here for, at LSU for 2 years coaching the running backs. Boom, gone when Kelly arrived. You give Kyle Williams a shot for coaching the defensive line. I can't really point the finger at him and say he sucked or something. I can't really point the finger at Kyle Williams and say he didn't do a good job. I don't have the information that tells me that. What I do have is 2 eyes, and what my 2 eyes and my 2 ears have told me and heard for me is that this LSU defense had a weakness just slightly up front, where yes, they had a lot of finesse guys. They had a lot of finesse up front, but they didn't have enough guys who could just finish off the sacks, make the plays. If it'd be great if a guy like Jack Pyburn was hurrying the quarterback on every play and he's rushing him right into Jacoby and Guillory, where he's just smashing into him and then using his weight to just topple over anybody. That would be great. But that's never how it's drawn up. It's never going to work that perfectly on every play. And so there was a lot of missed sacks left on the floor this last season. Just really the last few years, even with Blake Baker as your defensive coordinator, as good as this defense has been, it has been very disappointing time and time and time and time again. Not even against rushing quarterbacks, but just pocket passers who will outmaneuver our guys. So many times they overrun these plays and get beaten on the feet, and it drives you nuts. And so you're hoping Elijah Robinson is the right move here to kind of fix that for LSU going forward, where LSU are going to be able to finish off in the backfield a lot more. And, Elijah Robinson, I've lost track of what he's done at Syracuse, to be honest with you. I haven't quite followed what he's done at Syracuse like I did when he was at A&M. So, I'm always going to tell you if I don't know something. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I don't quite know his how well he did at Syracuse. I did see that he was in a head coaching position there at one point. So Elijah Robinson, you're bringing in more depth and talent on this defensive staff, where you really, it is a godsend. You're retaining Corey Raymond as your DB's coach. You got Blake Baker to come back as your defensive coordinator, even though these big jobs are wanting him. A dream job for him, going back to his alma mater. But you know what? Maybe this is more of a dream job for Blake Baker, because Tulane, it's his alma mater, but being the defensive coordinator of LSU, that's something else. That's a whole nother level. And now you bring in Elijah Robinson. As your defensive line coach, and that excites the young guys. That's gonna be fantastic in a recruiting sense. Can he be that defensive line coach who's gonna stay more than a year at LSU? Because we haven't had anyone. Let me see the last time the defensive line coach stayed for more than a season at LSU. I think it was Coach O. I honestly do. That's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. That is just crazy. And it's just wild that you would have Elijah Robinson. He's coming in, but like Kyle Robinson. I mean, sorry, Kyle Robinson. Kyle Williams out after a season, after a single season. Bo Davis out after a single season. Oh my God, it's hard to even remember. Jimmy Lindsey, my guy Jimmy Lindsey, out after only a single season, and it wasn't really up to him. He was fired, included with the Matt House thing, even though his coaching had no. He really was never given an opportunity to coach at LSU because he had this medical emergency that prevented him from coaching until way late in that season. And then he was fired with the whole rest of the staff, the Matt House staff. Before him, you had Jamar Cain, only a single season, I think, right? 2021, Andre Carter. Everyone was so excited by the Andre Carter hire, including myself. It was like, you hired the biggest badass in the world. This is going to be so sick. We're going to be, call a SWAT team, man. Andre Carter's our defensive line coach. This is going to be brutal. But then 2020, what was it? Bruce Johnson, and then 2019, Meatball Johnson. And Bruce Johnson took over for Meatball. So Bruce Johnson, 2019, 2020, I think, yeah, that's the last guy that you got to stay multiple years. But man, oh man, oh man, LSU have had a different defensive line coach every single season, and it's not okay. You have to fix that. You have to fix that to repair the recruiting. You can't fix that. You can't fix that. You're not going to hold on to every one of these guys. It's very interesting to see how Elijah Robinson is going to do. He's going to be very popular coming in. He's going to be a very big time name that, like, guys like Lamar Brown, guys like Trent Henderson, they're going to be excited by his presence. A defensive line coach that has proven he could be a head coach as well. The dude has a lot of abilities as far as a coach. He's going to be a rock star for years to come. Can LSU keep him for more than just a single season? That'll be interesting to see. Can LSU, get more than just 33 sacks in a single season? More than 30 sacks in a single season? Can we get over 40? That'll be interesting to see. In other news as well, because I told you there's a lot of news, ton of news. Austin Thomas, friend of LSU Odyssey, friend of the program, Austin Thomas, someone who was on staff with Kiffin at Ole Miss after he had left LSU with his second stint. He went to Ole Miss, built Kiffin that team that won in 2024. Should have been the team, and then they kind of collapsed and didn't really quite deliver. But then a lot of those guys returned for 2025, have a college ball playoff season. And Austin Thomas was a big part of building that team with Lane. Well, you figured when Kiffin was coming back to LSU that Kiffin would be like, hell yeah, Austin's my guy. No problem. Like, even though he left Ole Miss to come to LSU, that's whatever, water under the bridge. You're my guy now. Wow. But Kiffin shows that, like, this stuff matters to him. Loyalty at all times, like, this matters to him. And he, even though, basically Austin Thomas did what Kiffin did in a way, going to a different place before he could get fired eventually or be not of use or get caught up in some staff change. He kind of went off for his own adventure of fortune, which is like totally what everyone should do, in my opinion. But Kiffin did not like that. and was like, there's consequences for this type of stuff, and would not let him return. And that Billy Glasscock, that is such a creepy name to me, by the way. Billy Glasscock will be the new general manager at LSU, and Austin Thomas will not be at LSU this next season, ending his third stint with the Tigers. I hope it's not his last. I love Austin Thomas. I don't think it will be. He seems to be well liked and well loved, but the problem is Scott Woodward was a big Austin Thomas fan, a big Austin Thomas guru, a mentor. Was kind of showing him the ropes, showing him the ways, showing him how it was done. And Austin Thomas was getting that level where, Austin could be an athletic director at a lot of different places right now. And I don't understand why you would get rid of someone who's that good, because Kiffin knows just how talented, just how next level smart Austin Thomas is. That he's a guy who's going to be building top level rosters. He's going to be around high quality, high stakes investors, financial dominators in football for years to come. A numbers guy who really, really knew what the hell he was doing. Without Austin Thomas this last year, can you imagine what LSU would have been without that transfer portal class on defense? Without Blake Baker coaching him up, but without them even being able to come to LSU, without Austin Thomas being a big part of that push to bring a lot of those top level guys. LSU maybe win 5 games or something. Oh my God, guys. And I feel bad that Austin Thomas would leave right when it's this seems like this is set up for him to stay. Lane Kiffin's, someone he worked with, someone he built a great roster with. Of course, Austin's going to be a part of this. And when I was first told that actually things between Kiffin and Austin Thomas aren't as good as you'd think, I was a little stunned by that. I was kind of taken aback by that. But we love Austin. We wish him nothing but the best, and we're never gonna lose contact with that guy. We love talking to him. We did this interview with him in his first or second stint at LSU, and he left and then has come back again, and we've only talked more and more. And he's such a great dude and such a great person, such a great father, such a fantastic football mind. He's someone that I know he's going to be coaching or leading in a front office way a lot of top high caliber football programs, football teams for a long time to come. You're going to see him in a Super Bowl locker room, holding aloft a Super Bowl trophy, getting covered in champagne and stuff at some point. I really do believe that when we're talking about Austin Thomas. Friend of the program, Austin Thomas, leaving LSU. After, all this good news of guys, coming aboard, you really lose a good one when you're talking about Austin Thomas. Really good friend and really good person. And someone who I think that LSU really, I think it's an unwise move to get rid of Austin Thomas. I think that's the one mistake here, and it's one made of pride and a bit of hey, revenge. But you know what? I get it. I would probably have done the same thing because, I get the revenge factor of you left me and now you think you're going to be a part of the party. F you. Like, I get it. But you got to remember who Austin Thomas is and just how good he is, how good he is at his job. You got to keep that dude. You got to keep that dude. But sadly, Austin Thomas will not be a part of the staff. But really, inside Lane Kiffin's first week at LSU, you have had home run hit after home run hit since his arrival. Introductory press conference goes down without a hitch. In fact, he gets women going, oh. You got applause. You got like, yeah, baby, yeah, and like, people being like really intensely like behind him fully. People were so sick of the energy of Brian Kelly where it was just like he almost like hated the fans. He almost like hated the state of Louisiana. He just didn't want Louisiana to be part of it. He didn't want the noise. He didn't want, like, he was just like an annoying, grouchy, Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace. And now you've got Dennis as our head coach. And he can whoop this fan base up. And he can get these people energized like they haven't been energized in years since the Coach O era. And it feels good. It feels good because there was a post from Michael Cobble on Twitter where he said, like, LSU fans are just glad we finally have a coach who works or something like that. I can't remember how he put it, but it was like a coach that is finally working. It was absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Skewering. Savage. Just total savagery from Michael Cobble there. That's hilarious. And what you have seen is not just, hey, my guy, see ya. Brian Brown is my DB's guy. Corey Raymond, get the hell out of here. No, you saw him be like, you know what? Corey Raymond is the godfather. What am I doing? We got to keep him. Blake Baker, mission impossible. As I've said it over and over, mission impossible. How does he do this? How does he do this? Because he's smart and he's ahead of the curve and he acts quick. He makes sure to act quick. Kiffin knew he needed to keep Blake Baker this season more than any other. You need him. If Kiffin brings in even just a little bit of the offensive fireworks, we've seen him develop with so many of his offenses. If we even just see a below average version of that with a Blake Baker defense that can replicate anywhere near what they did this last season, this will be something else. This will be a team that can win every time they step on the field. And that's what I think excites so many fans about the combination of keeping Baker and hiring Lane Kiffin. And I mentioned this on the Tiger Rag radio show. I was like, if Kiffin is hired, the number one thing he has to do is keep Blake Baker. And Glenn Guilbeau very quickly said, like, that's not going to happen. He's going to Tulane. And it was like, yeah, that's probably true. And you just didn't think he would reject that move. But what I had continued to find out and what others had, I'm sure, had reported and found out, because it was no real hidden secret, was that the athletic director wasn't too high on Blake Baker, as high as he should be. And basically that gave an opening to Lane Kiffin to make sure he stayed. LSU made some very interesting moves. And a lot of people have been talking big time about where's this coach going to go? Where's that coach going to go? And isn't it great that LSU has so much of their future staff already settled? We already know that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be our future play caller now. We already know that Lane Kiffin's going to be the coach and kind of the offensive guru of the team. And then Blake Baker is going to return as your defensive coordinator, who led a juggernaut defense this last season. I mean, this defense was unbelievable. Should have reaped the 10 times the rewards that they did. They were a defense that was like championship worthy defense this season. I know that they got beat by dual threat quarterbacks. I get it. None of that shit would have mattered if we had an offense that could have scored over 25 points, and you all know it. If we have an offense that can just score over 25 points in every game at a minimum, LSU probably only lose 2 games with the type of defense that this defense was playing, and that was without Whit Weeks for a lot of those games. I mean, shit, man. Give Blake Baker a ton of credit. And not only that, the fact that he ignored all of the bullshit criticism his way and stays another year when you're able to keep Baker for 3 years. No one saw that coming. Everyone knew how in demand Baker was going to be. Everybody knew that, hey, Tulane is always going to come calling for him when that moment comes when John Summerall leaves. They're always going to come for Baker. Kiffin keeps him. Mission impossible. And now you've looked to improve up front. I mean, you're bringing in Trenton Henderson, Lamar Brown, Richie Anderson as your new defensive line class. That's going to be incredible. You've got a bunch of young, awesome defensive linemen from Dominic McKinley to Ahmad Bro. Gabe Relaford's going to be coming back next season. Zion Williams as well. Am I getting that name right? Zion. I think I'm getting that name wrong. You've got a lot of young defensive line talent at LSU. And this is the right staff, the right people to activate that. So much going on with LSU, so much to do. Also, one last story for you all. West Weeks, the brother of Witt, announced that he has played his last game. He's played his last game. His last game will have been that Oklahoma game. And he said, we'll get rid of that ticker as well because I think that covers that up. He says, been one hell of a ride. This is according to a post of his on Instagram. He says, been one hell of a ride throughout all of the highs and lows that I've faced here. I can truly say this place made me a better man. Been a true pleasure representing these 3 letters, forever LSU. I love it, man. I freaking love it. And he's a dude who didn't get as much love or as much attention as his brother Witt did. But man, West had an incredible season without his brother there for a lot of it this year, sadly. God, I mean, Witt plays a lot of 2023 as a freshman with West on the bench. He's playing as a freshman, starting a few of these games, and then he's thrown on the bench. West comes off the bench here and there. And then 2024, they're able to play together, and then West gets hurt after only a few games, and he's out for most of the season, except for a few games here or there. Only plays 4 games, sorry. 5 games, yes. Keeps his red shirt. 5th game was in a bowl game, so it doesn't count towards his eligibility. And then Witt this season, when West is fully healthy except for the end of the Florida game, he gets hurt. Witt gets hurt this season, and West has to play without his brother. On vice versa, they switch places this season. One's hurt this season, the other's hurt. It sucks. I hate that happened, but West had 8 tackles for loss this season. I don't know if people remember that, but that leads the team. 2.5 sacks as well. Not just like he was involved in 2.5. I mean, he was involved in about 4 sacks there. So this is a guy who made a lot of plays in the backfield. This is a guy who um, really didn't get a lot of fanfare, but I love to see that he finished the season strong, finished the season the best that he possibly could. I mean, his last play was a sack. Um, he really finished the season on a huge tear where he was getting a tackle for loss like every game and making some big plays. Batted a pass that was intercepted by Pickett. Caused a lot of chaos and havoc defensively this season. Really great season from West Weeks. And I feel like he was just barely starting to develop into that linebacker, that top linebacker. I think had this been like his junior or sophomore season, and then he has these next few seasons playing a lot more alongside his brother, man, incredible what he could become and could still become at the NFL level. West Weeks probably has a lot more levels than we even think. I definitely do not count him out. Witt. We haven't heard officially if Witt's coming back, but I think it's safe to say after what we've seen, the father of the girl you date is going to be your new head coach, and your defensive coordinator that a lot of people thought was leaving is coming back. It would be stunning if Whit Weeks did not return to LSU and instead went into the draft or went into the portal. I just don't see that happening. I think it's safe to say he's going to come back another season, but still need to see that confirmed. Still need to see that put out there, and maybe LSU Odyssey will break that news. We'll see. Who knows? Everybody, thank you so much for hanging around for watching this show. Sorry we're gone for a few days. But we're gonna come back with another big time show tomorrow. Kind of cover some of what happened with Lane Kiffin's first week and kind of some of the changes that will happen. I think there's supposed to be some news coming out tomorrow about some new staff changes and kind of more of the future direction for this team and what this team could be possible. What could be possible for this team in 2026? Because I mean, we're almost there. Basically, we're basically in 2026 now. It's pretty nuts. Everybody, it's been I apologize. It's been a weird, wild few weeks. We've had a lot of things kind of flipped upside down. A lot of things kind of changed on us big time, like life changing like that, and it's been rough to kind of deal with, and we've been trying to deal with it as much as we can, but it's required a lot of our energy and time, and that's taken away from this, and I apologize for that because this is an obligation for me. It's not only something that I love to do and is my number one passion, it is also an obligation I take very seriously. And so, everybody, apologize for that. But I want to let you know that I take this and what I do with the utmost seriousness and respect to you, the customer, the subscriber, and the supporter of what we do. We appreciate all of you big time. And when I say we, I'm talking about my family and I, because you guys help put that food on our table, help pay for that rent when you subscribe and pay for a subscription from LSU Odyssey. So I want to thank you all very much, and just want to let you know that tomorrow, strap in for a big show. We've got some crazy news to share, and we won't tease it. We won't tease it any more than that. Just I think you're gonna like this news. I think you're gonna like this move. I think Lane Kiffin's first week is gonna look even better after tomorrow.